Hello, welcome again to presentation number 6 of pragmatics, and this time around we'll be talking about conversational implicature. Conversational implicature and cooperative principle. Let us begin with conversational implicature. The idea that meaning is based in the intentions of the speaker is revealed in H.P. Grice's theory of conversational implication. And this is our source of this phrase, conversational implication. Very often, when someone says something, he or she may not mean exactly what the words literally mean. That is, the speaker's meaning may differ from semantic meaning. We obviously should be able to agree with this from our very first presentation that introduced pragmatics. Let us look at this example. There is a snake behind you. There is a snake behind you. Semantically put, what does this sentence mean? If someone says there is a snake behind you, semantically speaking, the reaction will be somebody is going to jump and run away, because we know a snake to be a very, very dangerous creature that can bite and bring harm to your body. And yet, in the above example, it is also likely that a warning is part of the speaker meaning. Maybe the speaker doesn't mean the snake as we know it. Maybe the speaker means the person you are moving around with is a very dangerous person. Maybe his ways are bad or her ways are bad, so he's not the right person to be with. He or she may put you in trouble. So instead of saying all this, what the speaker said is simply, there is a snake behind you. So that is the difference between semantic and pragmatic meaning, because we know semantically this does not imply a warning at all. It could be that you are being told for your own information that there is a snake behind you. Maybe the snake is in a cage. Maybe you are at a zoo. It does not necessarily mean that you are in immediate danger. So the extra meaning, which goes beyond what the words literally say, is what is going to be referred to as an implicature of the sentence. So by definition, an implicature of a sentence is that extra meaning which goes beyond what the words literally mean. Grice explains how speaker's meaning can be determined in such cases by putting forward a cooperative principle. What is this cooperative principle that Paul Grice has put forward? Grice argues that speaker's meaning can be calculated on the basis of semantic meaning and the assumption that speakers are behaving rationally and cooperatively. Grice then breaks this general principle into 4 conversational maxims to explain what rationality and cooperativeness are. And the maxims are as follows. Maxim of quality. What does it state? Make your contribution one that is true rather than false. That is, do not say what you believe to be false. Do not say that which you lack evidence of. These are the tenets under maxim of quality. So what Paul Grice is implying here is, when we are hearing people talk to us, we assume that they are abiding by the maxim of quality. We are going to understand them on the basis that what they are saying is true. The next maxim is maxim of quantity. What does it state? Maxim of quantity demands that we should provide information that is required for the purpose of the conversation but no more. In other words, provide information of the appropriate quantity. Do not say too much. Do not say too little. Do not make your contribution more or less informative than required. So what it means is, when we speak, and when people hear us speak, they have this critical assumption in them that what we are going to say is not going to be more or less informative than required. The third maxim is that of relevance. Make your contributions relevant. That's the tenet under this maxim. Make your contribution relevant. Contributions should be relevant to the topic under discussion. So, when people are hearing us speak, they're going to assume that whatever we are going to speak or whatever we are speaking is relevant to the topic of discussion. The last maxim is that of manner. What does it stipulate? Be clear and orderly in your talk. That is, avoid obscurity or vagueness, ambiguity. Be brief and orderly. When you're speaking, this is the expectation of your listeners. You're going to be clear, you're going to be orderly. You're going to avoid vagueness, you're going to avoid ambiguity. That is what Paul Grice is saying is expected from each and every person that is speaking. So Grice argues that we assume people follow the 4 maxims whenever they talk, and that this is what helps us to figure out what they mean. For example, we're going to look at this conversation between 2 people, A and B. They're going to talk about students in a certain class. There are 3 students in that particular class, and the students are Mary, Bob, and Jim. But the conversation is not among these 3 students. The conversation is being made by 2 other people outside the class who are not part of this particular class. A asks, which students passed the exam? And B responds, Mary and Bob. What does this imply? There are 3 students in a class. The question was, which students passed the exam? And the response is Mary and Bob. Here, A would conclude that Jim did not pass the exam. Would that conclusion be alright? B is using the cooperative principle to implicate that Jim did not pass the exam. Because after all, the question was which students passed the exam. And the response has been naming of 2 students. But Jim's name is not among the names mentioned. So B is going to use the cooperative principle to implicate that Jim did not pass the exam. In other words, B is using the thinking that A followed all the 4 maxims in giving the answer. Maxim of quality, maxim of quantity, maxim of manner, and maxim of relevance. So because B expects that A followed all the maxims, he rightly implicates that Jim did not pass the exam. Grice argues that even though people seem to break the maxims, they may still be following them at a deeper level. And so, we may still be able to get the meanings out of what these people are saying by analyzing the context. For example, let's say you are coming from a lecturer's office to correct your marked scripts for a pragmatics course, and one asks another, what is your score? And the response that the other person gives is disaster. Look at that particular conversation. What is your score? The response being disaster. Is this person following the maxims properly? Maxim of quality, maxim of relevance, maxim of manner. What Paul Grice is saying is, in such cases as this, the person may still be cooperative, only that the meaning should be analyzed in terms of the context. So possibly this person is being cooperative, only that for us to trace the meaning, we should analyze the context. So in this case, disaster might mean I have failed. So meanings or inferences that are derived on the assumption that speakers are being cooperative are called implicatures. Here's another example. That girl is a pig. That girl is a pig. At first thought, we may think that this statement violates the maxim of quality. Remember, the maxim of quality is saying we should only say the truth. So, can it be true that a girl can be a pig at the same time? Somebody may think that this statement has violated the maxim of quality. However, we may implicate that A wanted to communicate that the girl is overweight or maybe dirty. That is now in the pragmatic sense, meaning according to context. We are looking at the attributes, the characteristics, the traits of a pig and trying to get the meaning out of it. What does this person mean when he says that girl is a pig? He probably means the girl is overweight or the girl is dirty. So that process where meanings are derived on the assumption that the speaker is still being cooperative, there is still something that the speaker intends to communicate. That is what we are calling an implication. So in this particular case, we are able to implicate that A wants to communicate that the girl is overweight. Nevertheless, because these maxims are not rigid rules, like rules of law, they can still be broken. Maxims can be broken for several reasons. For example, you can deliberately break a maxim to be rude or to be sarcastic. In some cases, simply to hide information or to get a particular meaning. So, breaking of maxims is divided into 4 categories by Paul Grice. The first category is flouting a maxim. To flout a maxim is where you break a maxim in order to intensify meaning, or to be sarcastic, or to be rude, or to be polite, or to signal embarrassment, or to disagree. If you break a maxim for any of these reasons, that is called flouting a maxim. The second category of breaking a maxim is violating a maxim. This is when you break a maxim in order to deceive or lie. A very good example would be statements that are often made by most politicians. They violate the maxim of quality. That is, there is an element of deception. Now, when that politician violates or breaks the maxim with the intention to lie, that politician is violating a maxim. Of course, this is not limited to politicians, even everybody else in everyday life. The moment you break a maxim with the intention of lying, know that you are violating a maxim. The third category of breaking a maxim is infringing a maxim. This is when you break a maxim for psychological reasons. That is, if you are not psychologically capable of speaking properly or being cooperative, that would be infringing a maxim. Here, you do not want to lie. The problem is you are psychologically not able to speak properly. You are psychologically disturbed. So that type of breaking of a maxim is called infringing a maxim. A very good example is children between ages 1 and 6. These ones are linguistically incapable of proper speech. Hence, they'll be infringing a maxim. For example, because they are linguistically incapable of proper speech, they may end up infringing maxim of quality, sometimes maxim of manner, sometimes maxim of relevance. But then, these children, in this particular case, they are infringing a maxim. Not violating a maxim, rather infringing a maxim, because they are linguistically incapable of proper speech. Sometimes also the psychological state of being sick might make you incapable of proper speech, and that again will lead you into infringing a maxim. Sometimes when you're not a proficient speaker in a particular language, you haven't mastered a particular language so well, you do not know the right verbs to use, and you end up using maybe wrong verbs, okay, or wrong expressions. That again falls under infringing a maxim. The last one is to opt out a maxim. Opting out a maxim is when you deliberately do not want to cooperate. For example, in a court, an accused person may deliberately break the maxim of quality because you do not want to cooperate. You do not want to say the truth, because when you say the truth, you know, probably you may be convicted. So you're breaking a maxim deliberately. That instance is a very good example of opting out a maxim as a category of breaking a maxim. This is where we end this presentation. The next presentation that is going to come is on speech act theory. Thank you.